When people hear about the Civil War, it sounds like it just started in 1861, but that is not true. The country had been arguing for years before that, mostly about slavery, where it would exist, and who had the power. Between 1846 and 1861, problems kept stacking up, but the leaders tried to fix things. It only made them worse. That is why the Civil War began. The fight over slavery, the spread west, the compromise stopped working, and people stopped believing peace was possible. The Mexican-American War was a land dispute between Mexico and America, and when the United States won in 1848, it gained a lot of land in the West. Describe on these different topics.
Alright, so the Mexican-American War started with the Manifest Destiny. The Manifest Destiny was the belief in America that God is promised to us that we would expand westward. And as we expanded westward, we wanted to move into Texas. And Mexico wasn't very happy about that. They wanted to make an agreement that we would stop at the Nueces River, but we wanted to push through to Rio Grande. So after this war, the conclusion between America and Mexico was that we won and we expanded over 500,000 miles of land. And immediately after the war, it was immediately argued on whether or not this would be a slave state or a free state.
The next largest event was the Compromise of 1850. Congress hoped that this would calm everyone down, but it in fact did not. Part of the compromise was the Fugitive Slave Act. This law forced people in the North to help capture enslaved people.
The Fugitive Slave Act was a U.S. law passed in 1850 that required escaped enslaved people to return to their enslavers, even if they were found in a free state. It forced citizens and local officials to help capture fugitives and punish anyone who assisted the escapees. The law angered many in the North, increased resistance to slavery, and intensified tensions between the free and the slave states in years leading up to the Civil War.
In 1854, Congress tried a new law. Let settlers vote on slavery themselves. This was called popular sovereignty. It failed badly. So, Mr. Prica, describe a little bit more in depth on your knowledge about the Kansas-Nebraska Act and Bleeding Kansas.
Of course I could do that for you. The Kansas-Nebraska Act was the proposal of the two new states, Kansas and Nebraska. But the fight over whether there would be free or slave states led to a lot of issues. This led to Bleeding Kansas, which was many acts of violence in Kansas over, the government not knowing whether it was going to be a free or slave state. People were killing each other, burning things down, and just causing general harm.
As problems began to get worse in the United States, Congress decided that they had to step in. And they ruled for the Dred Scott case, which historian Mr. Labe will get into in a little while. But the court said that black Americans were not counting as citizens, and it said Congress could not ban slavery wherever they wanted to expand.
The Dred Scott case was a Supreme Court decision in 1857 that said enslaved people were not citizens and had no legal rights in court. It also ruled that the government could not stop slavery from spreading into the new territories. This decision upset many people in the North and made conflict over slavery worse, helping lead to the Civil War.
By 1860, Abraham Lincoln had won the presidential election of the United States, but this was out support with the southern states. This was all the northern states. So, this led to the southern states feeling like they had no more power left, which historian Mr. Prica will get into in a little while.
Eventually, around 1860, by the time Lincoln took office, the southern states had already split into the Confederacy by a process called secession. It seemed that a war between the north and southern states was inevitable. A quote from Abraham Lincoln, "A house divided against itself cannot stand."